Hello, I'm John Generone, Editor-in-Chief of IPO Edge here in Orlando, Florida at the ICR conference with Freight Farms CEO Rick Vanzura. Rick, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Terrific. Now, I'd also like to remind our viewers that we wrote an article about this company you might want to check out. You can find that on IPO Edge for more information. But Rick, tell us a bit about the company, just high level for those who don't know you.
Yep, sure. So we are the world's largest container farming company. We build out of standard 8 by 40 foot shipping containers, highly modified with a lot of our custom technology. Those containers with LED lights and airflow, plus software, plus consumables allow farmers to grow 2.5 acres worth of crops from temperatures ranging from minus 40 to plus 120 degrees Fahrenheit every day of the year with high degree of precision. So super land efficient, super water efficient, and that's allowed us to now get to every U.S. state and soon to be 41 countries.
Great. Now, Rick, I want to address this right off the bat here. There are a couple of other companies that people might perceive to be in the same industry you're in, but you're different. So I'm talking about Aero Farms, a couple of others. Those are big towers. You are using shipping container size stuff, right?
Yep, absolutely. And let me start by saying, you know, the macro trends that created indoor farming and vertical farming really drove them. They're not going away, so we root for everybody. But yeah, we're radically different. The larger scale vertical farming companies like the ones you mentioned tend to be both very large, expensive infrastructure plays, plus they're technology providers and growers, supplying largely lettuce and tomatoes into groceries. So single market focus. We're the exact opposite end of indoor farming. We focus on distributed, modular, last mile agriculture. It allows folks to be niche at scale. We're only a technology provider, so we focus on really creating this network effect. So we're not only learning from ourselves, but the now hundreds of farmers around the world who are helping us learn from their experience, from farm cameras inside the farms, from the software. And it's that learning lab that just allows us to continue to improve yields and range. And our being community-based allows people to create different markets and also allows us to be huge in not-for-profit as well as for-profit markets.
Great. Now, Rick, tell me how this works from a customer's perspective. So I invest in the container, but then I also want to keep you around, and I pay. Do I pay like a monthly subscription fee? How does that work?
Yep. So our business model is the farms, which are now 165,000, just went up this year. Software is $200 a month. It's required for operating the farm. Consumables are $350 a month, which is optional but very high attach rate because it's been optimized for our farms. So all-in investment of $170,000 to $180,000 gets somebody through their first harvest, and then they can be generating income after 6 weeks, and you can get a payback on the farms in 2 to 3 years, which again is just radically different than the value proposition with large infrastructure projects.
You know, Rick, when I was learning about your business, a thought occurred to me, and this might sound silly. Could you do this in outer space?
You could. As a matter of fact, we earlier in our evolution, we had a grant with NASA where we specifically focused on growing in extreme environments, and we will soon to be announced be involved in a project that relates to growing on Mars. So absolutely.
That's terrific. Let's talk about your growth strategy. So you said 165,000 are already out there. Where are they distributed geographically, and where are you going to go next?
Yep. So the 165,000 is the price point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For the farms. Yeah, no problem. So right now we have about 600 farms.
Okay.
Around the world. Again, every U.S. state and 41 countries. And it's a combination of resource-deprived areas like islands, like Alaska, northern Canada, where it's extreme climates, the Middle East. But also we have farmers in places like California, obviously with plentiful agriculture, where they focus on the customizability of the farms to create a differentiated crop for that environment.
Gotcha. Let's talk a little bit about some Wall Street stuff here. You're going public, very exciting news, going to be listed on the TSX. Tell us about your partner with the SPAC and why that arrangement worked out well. Because we've seen a lot of companies struggle with the SPAC transactions, and I feel like at this point in time, there's got to be a really good reason for that partnership. So tell us about why you like this.
Absolutely. And as a backdrop, we got approached by SPACs 2 years ago at some incredible valuations. And for us, that was just a tough model because you had to put out projections that were going to be wildly aggressive, and you had to put out spending that was wildly aggressive. So it almost was a requirement that you overspent against an unrealistic plan. So the issue wasn't SPACs inherently, it's how they were dealt with. So with our sponsor, Agronom, there's been a real focus on reasonable valuation, very strong support on sort of the promote from them to deal with some of the, I'd call it structural issues with SPACs.
Yeah.
And then Agronom specifically has just been an incredible partner. They've already invested through Lexington, sort of the home office of the CEO of the SPAC, Augustine. And super importantly, they are just very heavily involved in Latin America. I mentioned 41 countries. Unfortunately, none of them in Latin America because we haven't had the right business development partner, not because it's not a good market. So Augustine's already bought farms for Mexico to start developing that market. He's introduced us to some incredibly high-level, interesting players. We already can see a great development path there, and he has contacts around the world, as does the extended team, obviously with Agronom. So I couldn't have imagined a better partner for this process.
Now, Rick, on this $165,000 price point, it occurs to me that that's a pretty reasonable dollar amount. Do you have a lot of customers who start with one and say, "Hey, I want 2 or 3 now"?
Absolutely. Our core business farmer has been that small business farmer that sort of looks like what you would see with any typical small franchise group, where they want manageable investment, have an ability to grow as the success warrants it. So our typical small business farmer starts with 1, which, as you said, with kind of an intent to grow to 3, because you can have a very nice income and a manageable lifestyle as a husband and wife or 2-person team with 3 farms. We're in the process now, though, of becoming much more sort of institutionally oriented, and we have a couple of very large scaling farmers. So SBF will always be our heritage. We will support them, but we think overwhelmingly our growth going forward will be institutional.
Is it relatively easy to get financing for something like this? If I go to a bank and say I'm a small farmer and I want to invest, in this terrific product that Rick's offering us, but I don't have $165K in cash. Yep. Can you go to a bank and get financing?
Yeah, so easy is a relative word. I would say the majority of our small business farmers, for sure, use financing, and we found community banks are largely quite supportive. Certainly there's been a learning curve for them getting to know our technology, but it's now been around long enough with enough proven collateral value that's getting easier. I'd say in this high interest rate environment, we have seen for our small business farmers, they focused more on SBA and USDA loans, just because the interest rate's so much lower.
Yeah.
And they've certainly been successful at doing that. It just sort of extends that time frame.
Great. So last question, Rick, of course, we just discussed you're going to go public through the SPAC merger. You're obviously focused on that, but what's next? What else is in store for 2024? Any big plans?
Yeah. So we are, in addition to just organic growth and driving better yields and crop range, we are in the process of launching a smaller farm called The Garden, which is about half the size and about 40% the price, 30% the yield, and just super attractive, can go indoors. So we think that'll be a real market changer. We're also working on large-scale projects where our proven component technology and engineering support can be leveraged in warehouse applications, so we'll continue to focus on that. But a lot of it's just going to be to continue to build that network where a lot of our value is created, and continuing to work with our farmers to get the most possible value out of it, and continue to make our farmers as successful as possible, because at the end of the day, their success is our success.
All right, Rick, we're going to leave it there. It was a delight to meet you. As I mentioned,
Likewise.
We've written about the company, but it's great to meet you in person here. I'm John Janneron, Editor-in-Chief of IPO Edge from the ICR conference in Orlando, Florida, signing off.